So Anykščiai is a small town in the eastern part of Lithuania, kind of northeast of Kaunas, and equidistant, so to say, between the towns of Utena and Ukmergė.
Yeah.
And in 1941, when Germans came to Lithuania, the local postmaster in Anykščiai decided to overprint the stamps, as we will see in the future, in the nearby future. And the June overprints coming from Anykščiai were first discovered by accident by Stasys Brzeziškis, who was a stamp collector and also the Valsčiaus Virsaitis. I'm probably mispronounced their name, but he was the chief of local government, if you want, in a small area in Silai. Mr. Brzeziškis received a postal stationery from Anykščiai addressed to him and asking about the fate of a family. And mail like that was very common those days, and it was terminus time, and people were asking and sending requests to different parts of the country, asking about their relatives and friends, trying to find out what happened. And Mr. Brzeziškis noted a rubber date stamp overprint over the stamp on the postcard. And he saved the card in his own collection, but was wondering what that was all about. He really did not have an answer to why it was overprinted like that, but nevertheless was very curious about it. And after the war, he was unfortunately sent out to Siberia, and came back in the late 60s after Stalin was passed away, and in the early 70s he went out to Anykščiai and interviewed Mr. Niekis. And Mr. Niekis was not a postmaster. Postmaster was deceased by that time, but Mr. Niekis was a former postal employee at the post offices in Anykščiai. And he recalled that the postmaster Jonas Bielinis overprinted, to his memory, about 200 Soviet postal stationaries with 20 kopeek value, as you can see in the picture. And when asked further, he did not recall anything else being overprinted, but he also had some questionable memories of paratroopers, German paratroopers landing in Anykščiai, and this was the date. That's why it was overprinted. However, it was not the case. So his memories were a little scattered. Nevertheless, that's all we have from those days. But this is the card that kind of started the whole search for these overprints. And this was the card that was in Stasys Brzeziškis' collection. So Mr. Niekis did not think that the postmaster overprinted any stamps. In the late 1980s, Stasys Brzeziškis was an older, he was older, and he sold this postcard to a Russian stamp dealer, Alexander Galper, who some of you may know. I think Vigintas, Hi Vigintas, may know Alexander Galper. At least he knows Vigintas. Well, I have done a philatelic trade with Mr. Galper. I gave him nice and valuable Alsejai overprint stamp in exchange for this card, which he obtained in the 80s from Mr. Brzezinski's. And that's how I got this card that kind of started it all. So that's the Anykščiai overprint postal stationery. The interesting thing about this postal stationery, and as we go on, the Soviet Union postal stationeries, this specific one, the 20 kopeek one, they all have a little advertisement in the line, as you can see, and this says "На каждом почтовом отправлении пишите свой обратный адрес," which means please write your return address on every postal stationery. Interestingly, different postcards have different slogans or different advertisements in that line, but I think one post office would get a set of postcards with kind of the same advertisement at the time, but this will become interesting down the road. So in 2017, I bought another Anykščiai postcards on eBay. This one is sent out to Radvilskis, and with the receiving post cancel, was mailed out on the 31st of July and received on August 3rd, and has a very similar somewhat of a similar writing on the back. Andres, do you want to read what it says on the back and translate it for us?
She's kind of writing to this pony, this Kiene, and she says that please tell me about your health. Are you in the same place? And says that I am Philatelic, last name from Anykščiai. Says my mother is Leia Lostoniene. And I said I already wrote you a few times, but I haven't got any answers. He says we usually get mail from Šiauliai, and basically she's trying to establish a contact, talking about her elder daughter, and basically try to exchange information about the health and the well-being of the family, saying I'm healthy, however I don't sleep. It's a typical kind of very casual, nothing official. It's just very friendly
Very
type
good.
of exchange.
Excellent. That's kind of when I did my very basic translation with the dictionary, so to say, that's kind of what I gathered. So I'm glad that we're on the same page. The interesting fact about this postcard, that of all places in the entire world that I could have purchased it from, I bought it. The seller of the postcard was located literally 10-15 minutes away from me in a nearing small town in northeastern Pennsylvania. So that was quite curious. He didn't know what he was selling. He had no idea what this overprint is. He didn't even realize there was an overprint on the card. So I was able to purchase this for relatively low money. Now, this is my most recent acquisition, and this is quite interesting. This was earlier this year, but I knew about the existence of this card for a number of years, and this postal stationery comes from the personal collection of Gerhard Krischke. There are a couple of funny things about this postcard, but we'll go into detail about it in a few minutes. Andres, do you mind translating this?
No, absolutely. So basically she says, dear sister, how are you, and are you healthy? He says, we are all healthy. Just kind of wondering about your health. It kind of keeps repeating about the health. And how's your child? And basically that's about it.
So also a very casual type of writing, clearly non-philatelic and all that. So and this finally came out after Kryški's passing. It was known to exist, but finally came out for sale earlier this year, and I purchased it this spring from Kohler Auction House. So this is the interesting thing about the postcards, and this is not I put them as I acquired them, as opposed to necessarily in the time when they were used. But the first postcard has a C cancel, as well as the third postcard has a C cancel on them, and both cancels seem to go over the overprint as opposed to under, which would have been bad. And the second postcard has an A cancel, which is also a legitimate cancel that was used at that time in Anykščiai. The peculiar thing about the third card, the Kryški card, is look at the date. The date is 25th of June, as opposed to 23rd of June, that is well known to be the official date. And if anybody has an explanation for it, I'd be glad to hear it, but I don't have an explanation, and I don't know why that would be. When I discussed it with Tobias earlier, and he was obviously working for Kohler, he was selling this card, we both agreed that it could not be authenticated as a card because the date is wrong, and the overprint looks a little slightly different, but again, it's really hard to say what it's all about. Nevertheless, a very curious item. So these are the Anykščiai cards that are all known to exist. And by the way, all these cards have the same advertisement about writing your own return address on the card. So all three cards came from kind of the same stock. Here's another interesting fact about the Anykščiai overprints. When I tried to overlay the overprints from the first card and the second card that I showed you, I put them together and I did the overlay. As you can see, the year and the month came on right on, but the date on the first postcard is a little further away from the date on the second postcard, which is a little closer to the year and the month, and you can really see it in overlay. When I align for 1941, the month comes together, but the dates separate. And here I align for the dates just to show that it's the same print. You know, everything else separates, of course. So, this is not necessarily unusual, because this is not the exact stamper, of course, but that's a day stamper that was used at the time for a similar type. And you can see how those rubber bands could move a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. It was not necessarily a metal stamper that was fixed. So you can kind of expect a little bit of a swivel one way or another on those dates, but nevertheless, otherwise they look pretty good. And more importantly, the ink looks pretty good, as well as the cancel mark that seemed to go over the overprint. Now, what about the stamps? So it is mentioned in catalogs that the stamps exist, and confirmed by a long review of Dr. Daniela, who I'm sure most of you know very well from Australia. There was no recollection of stamps being overprinted by Mr. Niekis, and in general, people who collect this area are somewhat skeptical about the stamps in existence. and mainly because there are no covers that are known to have been recovered or found with the stamps on them. However, the ink characteristics, the type of the overprint, the size of the overprint, all match the ones on the postcard. The two examples on the left are from Dr. Daniela's collection, and the 20 kopiec overprint is the only one I've ever seen in 20 kopiec, and the two on the right are from my collection. The 15 kopiec is the only one I've ever seen as well. The 5 kopiec do come up for sale every now and then. They do have to be looked at just because there are a lot of forgeries of this overprint, but 5 kopiec overprints do exist, and obviously much more common than the other two, or however there could have been. So this is a 5 kopiec overprint, which I have mailed back many years ago to Rainer Bender. Rainer was a German BPP examiner for overprinted for German occupation of Lithuania overprints, and unfortunately he passed away of pancreatic cancer in a relatively young age, and he was my go-to guys when I was learning about these overprints. He was very good and very knowledgeable, and his answer to me essentially was that he thinks that this overprint is genuine and looks good, but he also states that nobody in Germany is able to authenticate these because there is nothing to compare it to. However, he was wrong. There was Dr. Klein who authenticated everything. And I have certificates from Dr. Klein saying that these overprints are all genuine. So who knows? Now, this is my study of these overprints. I took a postcard, the known genuine postcard from the one that was received in Silali and was kept with the with its owner for all this time, and I overlaid the stamp overprints on the postcards, and as you can see, this is the block of 4 from Dr. Daniela. The date is moved a little bit. Otherwise, the type of the overprint and the quantities of the overprint all match. The 20 kopiec stamps matches pretty much exactly how it should be. This is the block of 4 from my collection, matches perfectly on top of the postcard, and the 15 kopiec from my collection also is shifted a little bit, as you can see. So very interesting, and kind of confirms that they were done probably with the same stamper, especially considering that the type of the ink is the same. Makes you think that they are probably real. However, nobody will ever be able to confirm that for certain because there is no mail known with the stamps on it. So, and of course, there are multiple forgeries. These are just some of the forgeries. The forgeries are described with just the stamp overprint, used and unused. But you can see that the numbers look different, and the ink looks different. And forgeries are also described with the sign Anykščiai under the date, which obviously never happened. Nevertheless, some of the catalogs actually describe these forgeries where there is a date and Anykščiai underneath it. Well, at least some of the Russian catalogs that I have seen. So gotta be very careful because overprint is fairly simple and can be easily forged, and there are many fakes around. There are also fakes of complete covers like this one. So this looks pretty cool, but everything on this cover is fake, except for the original stamps. Stamps are original Soviet Union stamps, but the overprint, the cancel, the registration marking, all of this is a forgery. Now we shift gears and go to Pajūris. Pajūris is a small town in western Lithuania as opposed to eastern Lithuania, which Anykščiai is, and is not far from Taurag and Philatelic. And on June 23rd, when Germans started bombing Lithuania, the whole post office got on fire and was bombed, and all the stamps in Pajūris post office were destroyed. The postmaster, Jonas Gestautas, was able to save the cancel mark, but everything else was gone, and he reestablished the post office because there was a need for one in town in a different place. So this is the line. Well, this is the page out of Postage Stamp of Lithuania by Jonas Grigaliūnas and all, in published in 1978 in New York, and for many years until Antanas Jankauskas came around, this was the Bible of Lithuania Philatelic. And this is the printout, and that following the practice of Anykščiai post office, Pajūris post office, overprinted Soviet Union stamp with a similar single line hand stamp, also consisting of the same date in violet color. And the reason why we know the exact number of stamps overprinted is very simple. When Postmaster Jonas Gestautas realized he needs to reopen the post office, he had no stamps. Everything was burned in the fire. And so he ordered a specific amount of stamps from a nearby postal office in Tineniai. And these are the stamps that he received and the quantities of the stamps he received. And the reason he decided to overprint it is because, just like in Philatelic, Mr. Gestautas received a stationary postcard with overprint from Anykščiai and decided that it was a really good idea and decided to do the same on the newly acquired stamps. And for many years, there was a good knowledge that except for two known covers, it is not known, as you can see in that red frame, it is not known whether any of the Pajūris overprints have survived. And these are the covers. This is the cover going to Philatelic, and this was in a collection of Eugenius Usparas, and appropriately franked 30 kopiek for domestic mail. And both stamps have overprints on them, dated August 25th, 1941, and the same day arrival. And here's the second known cover, and this one is a registered cover that Dr. Daniela many years ago was kind enough to give to me. And this was a registered cover, as I said, #1 registration mark, and appropriately franked 60 kopiek, 30 for domestic mail and 30 for registration, and mailed on the 14th of August and received on the 16th of August in the same city, Philatelic. So there were no stamp collectors in Pajūris at the time when all of this was happening, and in the beginning of the war. And the postmaster Jonas Gestautas was not a stamp collector himself. So all the stamps that were overprinted were used for mail purposes. Mr. Gestautas had retained 3 sets for himself for archival purposes. Interestingly enough, the first to discover the overprint was Stasys Berziskis. Remember this guy? He was the guy from Philatelic, and he was the one who paid attention and discovered the Anykščiai hand stamp. And he acquired, and Mr. Brzezinskis went to meet Janas Gistaudas and learned of the 3 sets that he put aside for himself, and purchased 2 of those 3 sets. He kept one for himself in his personal collection, which reportedly was lost when he was sent to Siberia, and gave another set to a Latvian famous stamp collector, Plats. And the fate of this set that was given to Plats, as well as the set remaining in Gistaus's possession, were unknown. Well, interestingly enough, in 2013, Kohler Auction offered a set of Anykščiai overprints for bidding, and every stamp came with a certificate from Dr. Klein and certified as genuine and authentic and Anykščiai overprint. However, looking at these overprints, and by that time I have studied Anykščiai overprint, these looked somewhat different. But boy, my curiosity was piqued, and I went ahead and purchased this whole set. And here are the certificates from Dr. Klein on each individual stamp, stating that they're correct, legitimate, and Anykščiai overprints. So when I received this stamp that you can see on the left, newly acquired stamp, and known Anykščiai stamp in the middle, and the postcard on the right, you can tell that they look different. The color of the ink is purple on the Anykščiai stamp, where it's kind of gray-ish looking on the newly acquired stamp, and the overprint itself looks a little different. The number 3 is more round, the number 2 is more straight rather than angled and stuff like that. So they clearly not Anykščiai. So, but when I examined it a little closer, there are a few markings that you can tell that were identical on the stamps from this set to the known covers from Pajūris. And there are the plate flaws that you can easily tell. The extra line on number 3 that is seen on all the stamps from Pajūris, the straight body of number 2, and the wide angle of number 1 that can be seen on both stamps. The stamp on the left one is the stamp off of the cover of Mr. Uspouris, and the stamp on the right was the newly acquired stamp from the set I purchased from Kohler Auction. So right at the time when I was buying this stamp, Dr. Daniela was about to write an article, overview article about Anykščiai and Pajūris, and actually submitted his draft of the article to Adrius for publication in the LPS journal. And Adrius was nice to mention to me, "Oh, Daniela wrote this article," he said. And I said, "Adrius, let me ask Dr. Daniela to maybe postpone the issuance of this of his article till next issue, because I may have really earth-shattering news." And so indeed I did, and I wrote an article about this newly found Pajūris set, which I called Back from the Dead. And this article was published in 2013 in LPS journals, and there was a nice and long foreword by Dr. Daniela, leading to describing his recollections and everything that he learned from writings of Mr. Misdivas on this set, and kind of leading to my research article. Now we have a full set of previously unknown stamps, but could there be another set? And In 2004, I was still a medical resident. I barely had any money, and I had a lot of loans to pay for medical school. But I was very, very interested in Lithuanian Philately. And I remember bidding on this Anykščiai set at Cherrystone auction. But I was outbid, and I bid $2,000, which was much more than I could afford at the time. Nevertheless, I was still outbid, and it was sold to an unknown bidder at Cherrystone. And unfortunately, the quality that you can see on the left-hand side of that stamp is really all I could see too. But boy, something about it looked like, maybe it's not exactly Anykščiai. But I couldn't tell because the quality of the scan was so poor back in 2004. And that's how it looked on the catalog from Cherrystone as well. But that really made me think, could this have been another Pajūris set? Guess what? And it was. And this set that you can see on the bottom, the one on the top is the one that I bought from Tobias from Kohler auction, but the one on the bottom I purchased a few years ago at Cherrystone auction. And indeed, this is the second of the Pajūris sets that is known to exist now. So back from the dead times too now. And very interesting finding. And there is a saying in Russian, "Кто ищет, тот всегда найдет," which means that if you're looking hard for it, you'll find it. Guess what? We found two now, and for years they've been known to not exist. And this is it. This is the end of my Anykščiai Pajūris talk. And this is one of my favorite pictures from my recent trip to Lithuania this past summer. And both Vigintas and Antanas are in the Zoom, so that's pretty cool.
Yes, thank you very much for another terrific presentation, both fact-wise and illustration-wise. I know you stayed up until, what, 5 o'clock in the morning working on this presentation, so definitely we all appreciate the time and effort to put this presentation together on short notice, but also for, in such a good quality. Thank you very much. So the topic is open for discussion. If anyone wants to jump in right away, go ahead.
I just want to mention, and I think Vitaly referred to this, there is some material on what Vitaly spoke on page 124 in Antonea's book here. Thank you, Vitaly.
I think the whole history behind these two issues is pretty fascinating, and how it all ties together with the same people and the story that kind of weaves over the years.
And in the same time, I would like to welcome those that joined us quite late. I see Jan has joined us. Welcome again. I see Juozas Urbanas from Lithuania as well. I believe I saw Vygintas, Labas Vygintai. Who else? I see we have a new member, new person. Well, I guess it's a very specialized topic, and since you only have 2 sets of stamps, so nobody can even dare to ask a question.
I want to ask a question about Anykščiai art. If I understood, Vitaly, did I understood correctly that you stated that there are 3 known cards?
As it stands right now, there are 3 known to me, and the third one, because of the wrong date, is in question.
Yeah, but the 4th one is in collection of Eugenijus Užtvaras.
He may have another one. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Because 30 years ago I sold my collection to Užtvaras, and it was Pajūris and Anykščiai both cards I bought from Birzhishki's collection. So Birzhishkis in his collection, he had two cards. Once he sold to
Galper.
Galper, and another one he kept with himself.
Okay, well then there is another one in Usporus. I just have never seen it.
Yeah, you know, it was 30 years ago, so I haven't made at that time scans, so I do not have as well. Yeah.
Well, theoretically, there could have been about 200 of them, so it's quite possible.
Yeah, but just I wanted you to know that fourth
No,
one
that's great. That's great.
existed.
I hope his collection will someday be available to at least view to other collectors.
It's difficult to say now. It depends on relatives' behavior and then their plans and willingness.
All right. So if you have any question that you come up to ask Vitaly, you can ask anytime later. I guess Martin, I think this would be perfect opportunity for you to jump in and to share some interesting information that you have found. So the stage is yours.
So it's a little PowerPoint presentation. You see it. This is slide 1. Do you see it?
Yes, but you're showing your speaker's screen rather than audience screen. I think you could change that. I don't know how to do it from this particular point, but
So now I have an English slide. It's okay.
yeah,
Hello?
it is fine. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So I got an email a year ago from a Lithuanian comrade, a philatelist, and he offered cancellation devices offered and at Facebook, and this picture on the right, there's 2 devices and some postmarks made from these devices actually, and some back informations which Soviet postmark types in Lithuania 4041 and before 1999 was used, and the cancel devices continued to be used in Lithuania from 11th of March 1990. And the apertured postmarks in Lithuania, Soviet cancelers offered in Facebook, and examples Pacurius and Diguche. And I will make clear why Pacurius and Diguche are very important. There are, I think, 81 types of Soviet postmarks used in Soviet times, and only these 2 types are interesting. This one with a short bridge. This is introduced, I think, in the late 60s or 70s. And this with the date shield. They are introduced in the 50s. And there's something a little different. The occupants bring with them Cyrillic postmarks with appearing the Lithuanian name of the town on the left and the Cyrillic letters on the right. So these we call this type 4041. And here's from Mariumpoli. This on the right side, the Cyrillic. So, and these some postmarks were used after the March of 11, and we see 3 types. On the right, there's a date shield with big figures, And you see the Cyrillic name is on the left and the Lithuanian name is on the right. And this is with in the middle is with little numbers, and the same order on the left, the Cyrillic. And here on the left, there's a type of the short bridge, and it's in the middle of the 19th. And these three types you can see in the 90s and in 1990, I think, in Lithuania. So only to see Mr. Bubnies told that 24 post offices used this aperture postmarks in Lithuania, and for some curious here on the right, you see the date is flipped over, so you have the Lithuanian name on the left and the Cyrillic on the right. So here are the offered devices from Facebook, and Gamelava 1B, and with the postmark from it. And this is from Kaunas Centras in a very different condition. The left one, this is very good. I think it's not used so often. And in the middle, it's like okay, and on the right, it's the very corroded. It's not. I've hardly could identify the index letter of this. And Klerischkes, and yet you see on the left side of the device, the letter R is wrong. It's a Cyrillic and not a Latin letter. This appears from time to time on Soviet devices. So a little more interesting is the offered devices from Shilute. And here you see we have this all with date shields. And on the right, upper right, you see big figures. And on the bottom line, you see little smaller figures. By the way, I don't know whether they were sold, but I don't know what happened with them. All these shown devices are not very dangerous if you know the difference. And I bought one of these devices because the only one is very dangerous, making for forgeries. It's from Degoche. And if you see, these are the plate, the metal plate of the device. There appears the Latin name on the right and the Cyrillic on the left. And if you make a postmark from it, you have the type 4041 on the left, the Latin, and on the right side, the Cyrillic. And if you have the other devices, you have a short bridge that could never be used in 4041, but only in the, I think, the 70s and so on. And on the left side, we have a stamp from Paneviges, and this is only a cut off from a letter. And this stamp is cancelled with a Pacurius postmark, which doesn't exist in 4041, because on the left side is a Cyrillic and on the right side is the Latin form. This device Pajūris appears in 1991 on Lithuanian letters and postcards. This from 91, and from 90, I think this device is in private hand, and these all are made by a private dealer or so on, don't know. But it's the type from the 50s with the Latin on the right. Okay, so I will finish the presentation. Okay. So, online. So I'm really out of the Zoom presentation.
Anyway, Martin, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts to add.
Yeah, yes, I have, and I want to show you this part of the device. So this is from Deguche. It's not so good. It's a metal cylinder, and I have get this piece of wood, and I can put it together, and so I have this device from Deguche, and this is the only one which is dangerous for forgeries, because this is a type with the Latin letters on the left and the Cyrillic on the right side, and the others are not usable for forgeries. And I think it's very important to make it known to philatelics for collectors, to know the difference between the type 4041 and the afterward type. So that's what I want to show.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for doing service to community to buy and hold this canceller device. So I guess the other guys that could use for making forgeries would not have a chance to do that. Thank you very much.
Part of my plan for presentation on the Anykščiai and Pajūris was to go over the cancel marks used in both towns, but I just ran out of time this morning and didn't add that together. But that is a pretty interesting presentation in itself, because those cancels were used from 1930s and all through the war. They could be found on letters and with Ostland overprinted Hitler stamps, as well as some other German stamps used in those two towns.
I think, Martin, maybe it would be worth to write a short kind of one-pager article, which we could publish, either in the journal or even published online, with kind of mentioning those particular type of cancellers that could be, that other collectors should pay attention to, and especially because they're in the private hands.
Yes, okay, I shall do it.
All right, so let me move on, because we're kind of,